of the African savannah on safari, looking for... Mike, is that a lion stalking us? I think it's something much scarier. It's a search term report, and someone has keywords with 150% ACOS. Oh no, they never added any negative keywords. And it looks like all their bids are just $3. No bid optimization? We're in trouble. We need to do something about this giant ACOS, but I don't know if we can do it alone. Oh no, it's the ad badger. Should we run? No, the ad badger can save us. He'll rip that high ACOS to shreds with bid optimization and negative keywords. What's going on, Badger Nation? It's Mike and Brett from Ad Badger, and you're listening to the PPC Den Podcast, the world's first Amazon PPC advertising podcast, and your source for all of the tips, tricks, and optimization strategies you need to get the most from your Amazon ads.
What's going on, everybody? I hope you like that intro again. In this episode, we're going to be diving more into some of these new features that Amazon has been releasing, and we're kind of going to try to unpack those for you and give you the best operating procedure and, the best updated method for optimizing your Amazon ads. So, Mike and I are going to be unpacking all of that today. And the way that we really like to think about this is just like you can think about going to the gym and exercising and keeping your body optimized. It's an ongoing routine. It's an ongoing thing you have to constantly be working towards. And, Amazon is going to continue releasing new updates for their PPC going into the future. And we need to always stay on top of these things because the landscape is changing. It's getting more competitive. New features are being added. They're taking a lot of these features from Facebook ads and Google ads as well. So, here at Ad Badger, Mike and I are going to always do our best to really unpack all of the new features Amazon delivers us and give those to you guys so you can stay up to date and well optimized and keep those campaigns really efficient. So how about that, Mike?
You have to change and embrace it and ask yourself, how can I best navigate all of these new changes? No matter what world of digital marketing you're in, you got to embrace the change. You got to ask yourself, how does this fit into good digital marketing? Because good digital marketing is good digital marketing. The overarching strategies are always going to pretty much be the same. Get the right message in front of the right people at the right time. So that's universal. So everything that's new that comes out, we're always asking ourselves, how does this better help us, better target, better serve a more relevant ad to the right person at the right time? And that's what we're here sharing on this podcast. Speaking of the podcast, what you're listening to, podcast has been getting some love, Brett. If you're an Amazon seller, you know the review struggle. So if you want to hop on to iTunes and drop us a review, feel free. Brett, if it's cool, can I read this little note that we got earlier today?
Oh, of course.
This comes in from Jack. Jack, thanks so much. He says, by the way, the 2-part podcast you guys made recently was excellent. It was the best Amazon PPC mini course. And he's referring to our previous episodes, the Hitchhiker Guide to Amazon sponsored products. And I think that, that's a 2-part episode. I think that's one of our best overviews and deep dives into Amazon advertising.
Mm-hmm. Those episodes are definitely the meat and potatoes of Amazon sponsored products. And I think that's a great place to go, just to get a really good understanding of not only the basics, but also some more advanced practices. Jack also mentioned that he already knew a fair bit about the basics of Amazon PPC, but he was still able to pick up some little details that he wasn't aware about before. So, if you guys haven't listened to episode 6 and episode 7 of the PPC Den podcast, you should check those out after this one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And some quick Ad Badger company updates. Ad Badger, really exciting right now. We've got a design company that we're working with, helping us plan out some of the UX and UI, the user experience and the user interface of our dashboard, of our account navigator, and our reporting section. Really excited to roll that out over the next few weeks. And of course, like any good growing company, we're constantly hiring. So if you're out there and you're listening and you are, or you know any of these positions or people that could help fill these positions, we would love to take that intro and grab somebody from the Badger Den community, the Badger Nation. So senior PHP engineer and a content marketer or digital marketer, feel free to hit us up on LinkedIn or head over to adbadger.com/careers.
Sure thing. And I think we're ready to dive right into the meat of this episode. So let's cue that transition music.
Today, Brett and I were talking. Amazon advertising is changing so much, so fast that we actually asked ourselves, out of all these changes, what are we actually going to what change, what update is going to be most valuable for people to listen to, in January 2019. And what we came up with, we were really brainstorming, the way that you implement, right message to the right person at the right time, good digital marketing basics, good research peel, stick, and block, something that we talk about a lot on this show, balancing, casting a wide net, showing up for loads of impressions, and then taking the best impressions, the one that's convert the most, stick those into a highly controlled campaign, and then bidding aggressively, and then blocking it from appearing in that research campaign so that you're always paying the right amount. So this strategy up until now is pretty well defined for sort of the first several years of Amazon advertising. This hasn't changed much, starting with an auto, grabbing the keyword, throwing it into an exact, or graduating it from a phrase in a broad and then blocking it from wherever you originally had it. That really hasn't changed much until now. Product targeting campaigns, I think we have really just started to wrap our heads around. I think, both Brett and I, and as the Amazon marketing community as a whole, we're really just starting to discover what product targeting can do, which is why we call this episode Product Targeting into the Great Unknown.
Mm-hmm. And, they just released product targeting towards the end of November here. So these are very recent and very new changes, but we think that these could potentially have a huge impact on basically the method that you're going to be using to approach optimizing your campaigns. And, it's crazy how much just a little change like this in November could change the PPC landscape as a whole. I did want to ask, Mike, since you are pretty much an Amazon PPC dinosaur and you've been around since 2010 or something like that, what are some of the other changes that you've seen up until this point? And do you think that these recent changes are going to be the most impactful?
I still remember when you could run Amazon PPC ads to your Shopify store and you would upload a product feed and it would create an Amazon listing for you. And then when you would click buy, you would go to somebody's like Shopify or standalone e-commerce site off of Amazon. And the conversion rates for those ads were so good. They were probably like averaging 5 to 8%. And it was a dream because, standalone Shopify stores, my clients at the time couldn't get a 5 to 8% conversion rate on Google ads or Facebook ads, but it was called Amazon product ads or PADs. We were able to use that and get loads and loads of traffic. Years and years ago, Amazon turned this off because they probably realized, hey, why are we doing this? Let's keep people on the Amazon ecosystem. So that was probably one of that was something that was so big that even not a lot of people knew, but everyone who was using it like gangbusters. They removed that. And that was a pretty big day with how people thought about paid traffic on Amazon, because that, the product ads, most people, if they have an Amazon store and their own Shopify store, probably prefer to get that sale happening on their Shopify store.
Absolutely. And, there were probably some of the pretty big sellers on Amazon now were probably some of those old Shopify stores that basically lost all of their traffic and had no choice but to bound down to King Amazon and just give in and become FBA sellers that way.
Sure. So that was a really big change. At one point in time, they didn't have match types. Now they have, of course, exact, phrase, and broad. They didn't have things like headline search ads, currently known as sponsored brands, and so on and so forth. So the platform has changed a lot in the last year. It's changed a lot in the last 6 months, and it's definitely changed a lot over the last 8 years. And one of the things that's been fairly constant is, and this is true with any paid traffic platform, you need some of your campaign spend to be dedicated on research. You need to go out and find what people are searching. You need that real data, and you need to fine tune your campaigns so that you cast a wide net and that you can find things that haven't been part of your strategy yet. You need to find new terms. So, Google has broad match and phrase match to help you discover new keywords, and Amazon also has broad and phrase match. But the thing that worked really, really well was just setting up an auto campaign.
Mm-hmm. There's a really interesting book, Mike, called Ready, Fire, Aim, and it basically, the whole. A quick summary of the entire book is that you shouldn't really hesitate, just kind of jump right into things and then optimize as you go. And I think that is extremely relatable to Amazon PPC. And the good part is that, there's a really easy way to do the ready, fire part, and that is just starting up an auto campaign, starting up a research campaign. But with these new product targeting features that were just released in November, it looks like now we have the option to start a category targeting ad from the get-go. And that could potentially replace the whole methodology that we used to have behind starting off with an auto campaign. So it'll be interesting to see where we go with that.
So let's break it down. Let's say 8 months ago or a year ago, this is what you would do unquestionably on Amazon. You would take your product, put it into an automatic campaign. Automatic campaign, Amazon automatically displays you for what it believes are relevant searches that people are making, and it will display you for what it believes are relevant products to be sort of a sponsored product related to this item when you're looking at a detail page. That's what an auto campaign does. And the big plus side of an automatic campaign is that Amazon's doing all the hard work for you. It's casting that wide net for you. And then you can go and see what you appeared for and then peel it out. Look at your search term report, peel that keyword out, and then stick that keyword into a manual campaign and then you would block it from the auto. That was fairly straightforward. So that was how auto campaigns and manual sort of exact match winner circle. And of course, if you wanted to take that keyword and turn it into a broadened phrase, you can do that too to get a little bit more research to the left and right of any keyword that you throw in as an exact. And that was pretty much the entire story. That was how an auto campaign behaved. The downside of an auto was that you were bidding one bid for all those thousands of things that you showed up for. But the way to fix that was throw it into a manual campaign, and then you're able to do the bid optimization and pay exactly what each search term is worth. And throughout this entire time, the biggest thorn in your side was that when you look at that auto campaign data, you would see you would see the searches that people were making, and then you would see the ASINs that you appeared for, but you couldn't do anything with it. You couldn't block them. You couldn't add them to any campaign to target them more aggressively. You couldn't do anything. So up until just a few months ago, that was the entire story. And that story of research, peel, stick, and block with your auto to your manual was pretty much standard. But it's changing.
Yeah, those ASINs were kind of just off on the side teasing us the whole time. But now we can finally act on those, and we can do things with those ASINs. We can find our converting ASINs and throw those and, target particular ASINs. We can even block ASINs now inside of product targeting campaigns. So we have a lot more freedom now to work with this information.
Mm-hmm. So, with that standard, and let's even break it down. So with that standard auto auto campaign, manual campaign, that manual keyword targeting. The very first change that happened sort of at the end of November. And we did a podcast episode where Brett and you and I were just looking at the new settings, talking about what we think they mean and how to interpret them. And it's been a couple of weeks now. And I think we've learned a lot, and I think it's continuing to evolve. And I definitely have some questions here. So basically, here's the big question. Do we still need the other gigantic update was that there were really, 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 really big changes as little as like 3 weeks ago, I think, to auto campaigns. Auto campaigns have changed fundamentally too. So there's so many updates. It's like hard to wrap our heads around these. But the first big update was that there was a change to manual targeting, where now not only could you bid on keywords, but you could also bid on ASINs, and you could bid on categories, and you could bid on particular brands. So that was the first big change that happened on the manual campaign side.
Mm-hmm. And, I know this is a question we definitely wanted to touch on in this episode. And that question being, do you think category targeting ads can actually replace auto campaigns? And right off the bat, there's a little point that I want to mention before I forget, Mike. And that is that there are some sneaky Amazon sellers out there, and I know because I used to be one myself. And something that you could do to try to get, the bestseller tag or even Amazon's choice badge is you could list your product in a category that isn't actually where your product belongs. So just using that information, I think it'd be wise to continue using auto campaigns to display your advertisement on other listings, because even if you use category targeting, I think there are going to be a lot of ASINs that are kind of looked over because they're in the wrong category. So I think auto campaigns are still definitely going to have their place, because if you keep that auto campaign running, it's going to pick up on some of those ASINs that aren't in the proper category. And some of those ASINs are going to have really poor review ratings. So, if they have 1 star, 2 star, or 3 stars and they're in the wrong category, it's still a good idea to have your ad displayed on those listings, because you can steal away some market share there. So right off the bat, that is an argument to continue with auto campaigns, but let's just dive into this even more and really break it down.
Right. I think the idea that auto campaigns are still the very, very best way to cast the widest net possible, I still think that's true. However, I don't think it's as true anymore. And there's some creative ways to potentially cast a wide net without an auto campaign and give yourself a little bit more control. Because the biggest downside with an auto campaign, you can have negative keywords with an auto campaign. So if you're showing up for, let's say I'm selling a jump rope and I show up for a kids jump rope, I could negative phrase out the word kids and then never show up for any related kids term ever again if I'm selling an adult fitness jump rope. So you can do negative keyword targeting, but in an auto campaign, you cannot do negative ASIN targeting, which is maybe the current biggest frustration on auto campaigns, is that you can't go in there and you can't say, hey, Amazon, you're showing me for all of these different products. Some of these just make no sense. If I am selling an adult jump rope, it's definitely not to my benefit to show up on a product page as suggested product to like a kid's jump rope. But when you use an auto, you cannot influence this. You cannot negative ASIN. You can't tell Amazon, do not display me for that ASIN. So this is currently the most frustrating part of an auto campaign.
Mm-hmm. And, it is interesting. Mike and I were just looking through, a little deeper into product targeting campaigns. And, you actually can go ahead and add in negative ASIN targeting inside of product targeting ads. So this kind of gives us a little wiggle room here. I think we can start to get creative and try to come up with some interesting ways that a lot of people aren't experimenting with right now to actually hone in on, some of the search terms and even some of the ASINs that we are interested in finding. So, Mike, you were kind of talking about some of these creative ideas that you have. What's going on in the back of your mind over there, Mike?
So I ask myself, right? So inside auto campaigns, we do the research peel, stick, and block. We go and we try to find the searches that convert. We peel them out. We stick them into a manual exact. We can also play around with manual phrase and manual broad. And then we block that search term from appearing in the auto. So now the auto is continuing to work and continuing to find me new searches. So here's the thing that's changed. So with that issue in autos that you cannot do negative ASIN targeting in an auto campaign, I then ask myself, how can I mitigate this downside to autos? And one of these ideas that I have is to start generously using category targeting. And then because I can use category targeting in a manual campaign, so again, I create a manual campaign, category targeting, and I can just pick several different categories. So maybe this can even circumvent what you described earlier. So I can show up for my category and a couple other related categories. And then as I show for all of the different ASINs, I can then negative ASIN out of here. So I can just potentially not use any. And then here's the craziest thing. I can go into an auto campaign now and actually turn off appearing for ASINs. So here's the other major bombshell, and I think we should even have a sound here because auto campaigns have fundamentally changed. And really the crazy fundamental thing here, in an auto, Amazon just rolled this out. It might not be in your campaigns yet, but basically this wild thing is in an auto campaign, you will now see 4 different targeting options. You will see close, loose, meaning Amazon will take your product and show it for closely related search terms and loosely related search terms, and you can turn these on and off, and that's relating to the search term side. And then you see 2 more targeting options in your auto campaign, substitute and complement, and you can turn these on and off as well, meaning Amazon will take your product and show it as a suggested sponsored product for substitute products and then complementary products. So if I'm selling jump rope, the substitute will be other jump ropes. And then the complementary product might be workout gloves or workout performance socks or something like that. Those are the complementary products. So I can actually run an auto campaign that only shows me for searches, and I can run an auto campaign that only shows me for suggested ASINs. And that, when you combine that, the fact that I can actually turn off ASIN targeting in an auto campaign, could we live in a world soon where we actually have all of my discovery research-based ASIN activities in a manual category targeting? Because there I can do my negative targeting. And in my auto, even though I can turn on and off appearing for ASINs, as a whole, I cannot do individual ASIN negative targeting. And that was a mouthful, Brett.
Yeah, guys, just to kind of elaborate on what Mike's talking about here, because this isn't available in every single account yet, this is only available for some accounts. I have seen it inside of AMS, and I have seen it inside of Seller Central as well. But if you go to an automatic campaign, click your auto campaign, open up one of your auto campaigns ad groups, and then go to the targeting tab. So most accounts right now are still not going to have access to this. It'll just say automatic targeting, and it'll give you an option to download a search term report. But if you do have access to what we're talking about here, that's when you're going to see 4 different options appear. You're going to have, and this is inside of your auto campaign for what you can show up for. And you can even adjust the bids for these. So it's really interesting here. If you have access to them, you're going to appear for close match, loose match, complements, and substitutes. So close match and loose match relate to the search terms that customers are typing in. And then the complements and substitutes relate to other listings, basically other ASINs, your competitors' ASINs that your ad can appear for. So what Mike's saying is if you disable the complements and substitutes, you could essentially not appear for any ASINs using your auto campaign. And that works vice versa as well. If you turn off the close match and the loose match, I think you're going to be turning off appearing for search terms with your auto campaign. So this actually does change the game, and big props to Mike for kind of realizing this. He definitely realized it before I did.
So let's actually, as we come around to closing this episode, let's actually break down a couple of these key points. The first key point is that, up until just a few months ago, you did research, peel, stick, and block. You casted the wide net in the auto. You saw what keywords converted. You peeled them out, and you stuck them into a manual exact. And then you blocked that search term from triggering in your automatic research campaign. So that's what it was. So that's where we started a couple months ago. And number two, then there was a change that happened. Amazon rolled out positive ASIN targeting, meaning you could go and target the ASINs that converted. So as you have your auto, you can do research, peel, and stick with your ASINs now. So when you run your auto, you see if something converts. Not only could you grab the search terms, the actual searches, but now you can also grab the ASINs that you appeared for and stick those into a positive ASIN targeting campaign. However, you couldn't block the ASIN from appearing in your auto. So you can't do any negative ASIN blocking. So that was the second big evolution. The third big evolution is that now in auto campaigns, just like you mentioned, Brett, you can go into your targeting settings and you can actually turn off appearing for ASINs. You can actually do this, which is crazy. This is a big deal. So you can go in there and turn off your ASIN targeting. And then the question becomes, well, it's still worthwhile for me to appear as a suggested sponsored product. And the crossroads we are at is it better to appear for suggested products for other ASINs in an auto campaign where you cannot do negative ASIN targeting, or is it better in category targeting where you punch in a whole bunch of categories and then you can also do negative ASIN targeting? And here's the crazy kicker. You could also only appear for products that have, 3 stars or fewer. That's another sort of bonus of potentially casting that wide ASIN net in a manual category targeting campaign. I don't know the answer to this yet.
Yeah, guys, here at Ad Badger, we basically spend all day here experimenting with pay-per-click, looking through campaigns, and trying to, constantly evolve to be, as best and as good as possible at optimizing ad campaigns here. So, this is stuff that we're going to be experimenting with and trying to come up with the best procedure possible. Going forward, I imagine we'll probably have another podcast episode discussing those results and kind of giving you guys a more refined step-by-step way to go about doing this process. But what I will mention for now is that I have personally run several category targeting ads so far, and there are just a few things that I want to throw out there for you to keep in mind. So the first one is lately I've had a lot of people, we've had a lot of people ask in saying that they're not having good success with category targeting ads. And then, I open up the campaign and take a look, and they are, basically adding a whole bunch of different categories that are somewhat related to their product into their category targeting. And the problem is they're not pressing that little refine button. Whenever you go to add a category to appear for in your product targeting ad, you're basically going to be given the option to refine the category. And what that's going to let you do is select individual brands in that category if you want to appear for those. You can even exclude certain brands from your category, including your own if you'd like. But some other options there are it lets you refine by the price point, and you can also refine by the review star rating. And that is the biggest issue I've seen so far is a lot of people aren't utilizing this and aren't using that refined by review star rating. And I think that's the most important one. You don't want to appear on on every single ASIN in a category, especially the ones that have 4 or 5 stars as a rating, because that's pretty good, and the conversion rate on those listings is usually great. So your ad is much less likely to convert. However, if you're only appearing on these ASINs that have 1 stars or 2 star or 3 stars, those are going to convert a whole lot better. And I've personally seen some category targeting ads in the 10% ACOS range. So, these can definitely be effective. They can definitely be great at bringing in more clicks, more revenue. I would give this a shot, and we're going to constantly be bringing you guys more updates and giving you the best operating procedure for launching these category targeting ads and more.
That's right. Well, that is our trip into the scary world of of new optimization strategies. These are new, these are untested. If you've been playing around with how you use auto campaigns and category targeting and negative ASIN targeting in that new category targeting, I would love to hear from you. So be sure to either comment on this episode. You can find all of our episodes at adbadger.com/podcast. Would love to hear. We're going to continue testing and try to distill all these new strategies down to best practice. And I got to say, if you've made it this whole episode, you are definitely a hardcore Amazon marketer, because we got heavy on this episode, Brett.
Yep. If you made it all the way through this, congratulations. The Badger will spare you if you ever run into him in the wild.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. You can catch this episode and all of our other episodes at adbadger.com/podcast.
Take care, everyone.